Welcome to C-Files, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe and do a thumbs up. And we're going to spend a couple of minutes talking about this channel for just a moment. We don't advertise on this channel. I don't monetize this channel. So you can watch this channel without any advertisements and without going to any kind of special YouTube setting to eliminate the channels or pay anything extra to YouTube for getting rid of the advertisements. You won't need to do that on this particular YouTube channel. I don't advertise. I don't run a Patreon account. I will not ask you for money. Just sit back, relax, get your popcorn out, and enjoy the video. Thanks for watching. I appreciate all of you, but please help promote the channel. Now, soon I will be doing a video series on Bible prophecy. Now, don't get your hopes up because it's not going to be a series like you're probably thinking as soon as I say the term Bible prophecy. Many Christians today are saying we're in the end times. Many of them are making videos and making all of these predictions about end times, the signs of the times, and predictions about trying to relate Bible prophecy to modern day events. And I'm going to debunk all of that, folks. Now, I just lost a lot of you because some of you are looking for is the sensationalism of what I just described. But I'm not going to give you that. What I'm going to give you is what the Bible actually really says about eschatology and not what you want to hear. And so if you're interested in learning about that, and interested in learning about are we actually in the end times, or is that just a trend, a current trend in Christianity and it being false? But that we have many, many years ahead, maybe thousands of years. Maybe we're even in the early church still, and we have maybe 10, 20, 30,000 years before Christ comes back or before anything of that nature happens. So let's take a look at all of that. I'll do 4 or 5 videos on that, and we will talk about Bible prophecy. Now let's get into it. First thing we come up on is drug trials funded by manufacturers find 50% greater drug effectiveness. Now, isn't that interesting that the pharmaceutical companies conduct their own scientific experiments, which always come to conclusions that favors the manufacturer or the pharmaceutical company. Now, according to this article, authored by Huey Freeman via the Epoch Times, drug studies sponsored by drug manufacturers tend to report higher drug efficiency than studies not sponsored by the drug company. A new report published in the Journal of Political Economy on October the 7th finds that to be the case. Now let's go through some of this. The report found a sponsorship effect that tends to bias sponsored studies toward reporting higher drug efficacies. The author could not find differences in study design between those funded by drug companies and those not. Now, where did the phrase safe and effective come from? That's a good question that should be answered, most likely from their own studies. Removing the sponsorship effect would reduce the difference in efficacy by 50%. Tamar Ostrom, an assistant professor of economics at Ohio State University, said in her paper, "This effect was larger than I expected," Ostrom told the Epoch Times over email. "My results suggest that sponsored arms of trials should be discounted substantially." She said that the difference in results between sponsored and unsponsored trials may be that manufacturers are running multiple trials and selectively publishing those that are more favorable towards their drug. Even a small effect of bias by funding could affect the use of a drug, she noted. If some of the results from a clinical trial are biased, patients may be taking a less effective drug for them, or they may be taking a drug that when alternate treatment might be more beneficial, Ostrom said. So some of these natural remedies, some of these, like I go to a place called Albemarle Nutrition out here, and it is fantastic. It's phenomenal. I had a particular situation where normally people say, oh, you can't fix that without an antibiotic. There's no way. There's nothing that you can, none of this stuff that you buy in the health food stores can repair that. You have to go to the doctor and get an antibiotic. Well, I took a thing called Coagulus bacillus. It's a probiotic. And I took about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks to get the full effect. But I was able to defeat the problem without an antibiotic, folks. Now, these drug manufacturers would say that's junk science, junk science. You're putting out misinformation. But how much junk science and misinformation are they putting out by producing their own studies? You know, folks, I mean, let me put it this way. If I was a drug manufacturer, a pharmaceutical company, and I wanted to come to a certain conclusion concerning some product that I have produced, I would, if I was a dishonest individual, I would produce my own study that is going to come to that predetermined conclusion. And I would put together my own peer review group and say, oh, it's been peer reviewed. And then I would put it in the medical journal that I do, 50 or 60% of the funding for that journal to be published. And of course, they're going to put it in there. You see, it's all about money. It's all about money. The same thing with the climate change agenda. It's all about money, folks. It's all about government grants. The government wants to push a climate change agenda. Well, okay, so we're going to have to get some scientists to do some studies that come to a predetermined conclusion, and then we'll tell them, okay, you're going to have to believe in climate change, and you're going to have to do some studies that bring these results. And if you do that, we'll give you millions and millions of dollars in grant money. When I was a kid, I thought, science could never be corrupted. I mean, it's science. How could science ever be corrupted? But we know that the love of money can corrupt anything, including science. Now, we'll continue with the article real quick. She said that the difference in results between sponsored and unsponsored trials may be that manufacturers are running multiple trials and selectively publishing those that are more favorable towards their drug. Even a small effective bias by funding could affect the use of a drug, she noted. If some of the results from a clinical trial are biased, patients may be taking a less effective drug for them. And they may be taking a drug when alternate treatment might be more beneficial. Her research analyzed the published papers of 509 trials and 1,215 treatment arms, groups of participants. Most of the trials were published after the drug gained approval from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. About 3/4 of them examined were from antidepressants, with the remaining quarter from antipsychotic medications. My paper is the first to examine the effect of financial sponsorship on outcomes by directly comparing a large set of trials in which the exact same arms are tested with different financial interests, according to Ostrom. Trials comparing drugs vary by funding. Ostrom examined two main types of drug trials: drugs that are compared to placebos and drugs that are compared to other drugs. She found that the effect of drug company sponsorship was more pronounced in placebo trials. There are multiple payoffs for results that favor a drug's efficiency. Trials in which the manufacturer's drug appears more effective are more likely to be published, according to Ostrom. These published trials can be used in marketing to physicians. Prescriptions also tend to increase in response to favorable clinical trials. Ostrom cited a 2023 study that found that when a clinical trial significantly favors a drug, there's a large and immediate increase in demand. The trials Ostrom reviewed included an average of 100% participants with a mean age of 42. Sex distribution was nearly equal, with 51% of participants being female. As an example of bias, Ostrom presented the case of Effacor, an antidepressant introduced by Wyeth Pharmaceuticals in 1993. Over the following 15 years, Wyeth funded 14 randomized controlled trials comparing Effacor's effectiveness to its rival, Prozac. In 12 of these trials, funded solely by Wyeth, Effacor was found to be more effective. Well, how about that? Go figure. However, when Effacor and Prozac were compared with alternative funding, only 1 out of 3 trials found Effacor to be more effective. Each of these trials is a double-blind RCT comparing the exact same 2 molecules and examining the same standard outcomes. Now, that's what Ostrom wrote in her thesis. Now, the study confirms that the funding of studies greatly influences their design and results. Dr. Chad Savage, an internal medicine specialist and founder of Your Choice Direct Care, told the Epoch Times, multiple attempts have been made over the years to counter this effect, such as requiring financial disclosures from authors, but none have succeeded in fully eradicating the bias that can exist, Savage said. This bias often stems from the self-preservation instincts of researchers who are in a constant quest for funding, or possibly facing unemployment, he added. Solving this problem is challenging, he said. One potential solution is to return to the principle of reproducibility, a cornerstone of science. If a finding is valid, it should be replicable. In other words, you should be able to replicate the results. One of the things that I learned when I was in school was if there's a scientific experiment, another science group should be able to come along and replicate that experiment and replicate the same results of that experiment, and that would be another proof that that experiment was on the up and up. So being replicable is something he said needs to come back. Now, I'll go back. He says solving this problem is challenging. He said one potential solution is to return to the principle of reproducibility, a cornerstone of science. So I finally said it correctly, folks. If a finding is valid, it should be replicable. I have a hard time pronouncing that one. Through multiple studies conducted by different researchers with diverse funding sources and published in different journals. Why different journals? Because, a pharmaceutical company could have its own journal and control it, or maybe have a big money interest in funding a journal and have favoritism. Now, according to Dr. Peter C. Gultz, a professor of clinical research design and analysis at the University of Copenhagen, the bias in industry-sponsored trials is massive. Quote, head-to-head trials where Prozac was the drug of interest, significantly more patients improved on Prozac than in trials where Prozac was the comparator drug, end quote. He cited in 2024 study, he cited a 2024 study that found systematic bias in rating the effectiveness of Prozac, one of the first antidepressants on the market. Prozac is the brand name for fluoxetine. The Epoch Times reached out to Eli Lilly, Prozac's manufacturer, and Pfizer, which now owns Epixor, for comments. But apparently no comments came in. So as you can see, yes, there can be bias in science. Yes, science can be corrupted with money, just like anything else can. The love of money is the root of all evil. So can this also apply to the climate change science? Well, it most certainly can, and I believe it most certainly has. And so what can you trust when it comes to that? Well, the only way to fix that is to do what they said in the article. Take the money influence out of it and make it replicable. Now, or reproducible. Okay, so back to the election. Biden-Harris DOJ sues Virginia for removing non-citizens from voter rolls. Yeah, I'm not making this up, folks. It's right here in the Gateway Pundit. The Justice Department on Friday announced it is suing the state of Virginia for removing non-citizens from its voter rolls. Now, if you're reeling from that and you're scratching your head going, I don't get it, why would the government do this? I'm going to explain that in just a moment. The Justice Department announced today that it has filed a lawsuit against the state of Virginia, Virginia State Board of Elections, and Virginia Commissioner of Elections to challenge a systematic state program, take a breath, aimed at removing voters from its election rolls too close to the November 5 general election in violation of the National Voter Registration Act of 1993, the DOJ announced. So I'll read it again so that we can really get a feel for this. So the Justice Department, they made the announcement that they filed a lawsuit against Virginia and the Board of Elections in Virginia and the Virginia Commissioner of Elections to challenge a systematic state program aimed at removing voters from its election votes too close to the November 5 general election. They're questioning the timing of it. The timing. Always trying to find some loophole to find a way to cheat in the election. Quote, as National Voter Registration Act mandates, officials across the country should take heed of the law's crystal clear and unequivocal restrictions on systematic list maintenance efforts that fall within 90 days of an election, said Assistant Attorney General Christine Clark of the Justice Department Civil Rights Division. Quote, by canceling voter registrations within 90 days of Election Day, Virginia places qualified voters in jeopardy of being removed from the rolls and creates the risk of confusion for the electorate. That's what you call Tavistock-style gaslighting and mind manipulation. I don't believe that it has any such effect, folks, but they want you to believe that that's what happens. Anyway, you can read the rest of that. It's on your screen. So why would they want to have non-voters voting in the election? And it's come out now to have people overseas voting in our election, as long as they claim to be American citizens without any proof that they are American citizens. They don't have to prove that they're American citizens. All they have to do is claim, oh, I'm an American citizen, let me vote. And they're trying to get it to where you can just vote in any state you want. Just pick a state and vote in it. It doesn't matter if you're in Germany, China, Shanghai, don't matter. Singapore, who cares? But I think what the pro Harris, pro-globalist oligarch political machine, what it is miscalculating is that the vast majority of people overseas support Trump and don't want anything to do with Harris. But in their deluded thinking, because they have not updated themselves to what's happening with the voter demographics, they have come to the conclusion that, well, maybe if we can get all of these non-citizens that we allowed into the country over the last 4 years, and maybe if we can get non-citizens who are overseas, who claim to be citizens, to vote, maybe we can overwhelm the legal vote and still win this election, because they know they can't win with the legal vote. And even with the non-citizens who've come into the country, that's way down in the number of people voting. They know this, and they know they're going to lose the election. And so they're trying to even extend it to the rest of the world. Come on, world, vote for us. Help us. Don't let Orange Man into the office. But that too will fail, folks, because the vast majority of the world wants Trump to go into the White House. And that's not my opinion. That's a fact based upon research. And so that too will fail. I believe this election is over, folks, and I believe Biden and Harris have already lost the election. It doesn't matter what they try to do with Virginia. Doesn't matter all of the sinister things that they try. Even if they try what people call conspiracy theory, weather weaponization to try and win the election, even that will fail. And then extreme accountability is, let me try it again. Extreme accountability is coming, and they're going to be held accountable for the evil that they've committed over the last 4 years. And that's what scares them, folks. It's going to be interesting to see. There's Dr. Steve Turley. Check out his channel. He says, we called it. The polls are breaking for Trump. Not only that, but the early voters are breaking for Trump. The mail-in vote and the early show-up vote, walk-in vote, favoring Trump. And even in the swing states, favoring Trump. Folks, it's game over. They're done. The voter demographic for 2024 has changed, and even Obama is singing the blues when it comes to that. And blaming black men, saying, we don't have enough of the black vote. We don't have enough of the brothers, he calls them. The brothers are not voting for us. And he tries to shame them in his little speech that he gave. And that speech failed. And you're going to see that in just a moment. Let's go over here. North Carolina is still needing relief, folks. Western North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee, still needing relief. And here on X it says, keep sharing these videos because Kamala Harris's FEMA left these people alone and with nothing. Unpaid American volunteers providing their own equipment, risking their lives, sometimes almost fully submerged in water, clearing hurricane destruction in Burnsville, North Carolina. Now, I will say that local city and county efforts to help these people has been good. There is good government out there, but it's typically local. I know that our city here of Locust, North Carolina, and kudos to the city council and the mayor and the police department here in Locust, North Carolina, they have worked hard to send relief to Western North Carolina. And large trailer loads pulled behind one of the police SUVs out to Western North Carolina, loaded up, full of goods from the citizens of Locust to try and help and relieve the folks in Western North Carolina. Thank you to all of the cities and counties around the country that have done that. And thank you to all of the people who have put their effort in to help these folks. It shows a side of America that the Tavistock Institute propaganda machine doesn't want you to see. But X is bucking the system. Now, there's a Christian teacher in, I think it's Ireland. Christian teacher Enoch Burke has been sent back to prison in Ireland after he refused to use a student's preferred pronouns, they, them. Now, that's pushing a government religion down the throats of the people, folks. And the government religion is critical race theory. Critical race theory is, make no mistake about it, a religion, and I even call it a cult. Now, Burke has he's already spent 442 days in jail for opposing transgender ideology. Well, I would say it's transgender religion. The woke mind virus is destroying the West. Now, but they are losing, folks. They're losing. And I know here in the United States, every time a company comes out and goes woke, they go broke, as Dr. Steve Turley would say. And the latest is Toyota. Toyota went woke and felt the pain because we're not required by law to spend our money with woke companies. There's no law written that says if a company goes woke, you are now required to go buy their product. And so the people who are not woke don't go buy their product. And what have we learned through the vote of the dollar? We've learned that this country is not woke. Even with all of the efforts by the Tavistock Institute, higher education institutions, to indoctrinate their students into wokeness with gender studies and transgender studies and whatever other study they've made up in their different departments to push woke ideology through courses, maybe required courses before you can get your degree. The students haven't bought into it. They have played the game better than the professors and said, I'll just tell the professor what the professor wants to hear to pass the class. But as soon as they get out of the class, they're like, whoa, what a bunch of garbage that was. That was a bunch of nonsense. And many of the students are rejecting what the professors are trying to shove down their throats. So there is hope. And I think eventually even Ireland will wake up to the reality that soon they may just end up being isolated in the world when it comes to that. And woke ideology is going to die on the vine, folks. I do believe that. I want you to hear what this gentleman has to say. So here we go.
We need Jesus. Ain't no more denying it. We need Jesus. We need the Bible. This generation getting too wicked. It's getting too evil. This world getting too demonic. This world getting too dark. Too much sin. Too much wickedness. We need Jesus. We not helping no more. Secular music not helping no more. Rap scene ain't helping no more. Thugging it out scene not helping no more. Nothing is helping, bruh. We need Jesus. Because Jesus, he heals the soul. He heals the mind. He heals the heart. And when we have that, bro, we have life. Because Jesus came to lay down his life for the whole world. We need the life of Jesus in us, bro, because Jesus came to bring life and he came to bring it abundantly. He came for the whole world. He died for the whole world for all our sins. He was buried and he rose from the dead 3 days later. He came back to life. Why would you not want to put your faith in this man? And this is not just a mere man. He is God in the flesh, the Son of God, who came to give life to the whole world. We need Jesus. Ain't no more denying it. We need eternal life. We need salvation. We need forgiveness of our sins, because I'm not trying to live in no sin where God gonna judge me for, bro. Jesus is the only one who gonna give you comfort in life. We need to put our faith in Jesus and start following his commands. We need Jesus. Ain't no more denying it. We need Jesus. We need the Bible. This generation getting too.
Okay, so Over 100 years ago, there was the Enlightenment, if you understand your history. And with the Enlightenment came secular humanism, came secularism, okay? And that has ruled for over 100 years now. And it has created the society that we now live in. And the society that we now live in has fallen out of favor with the younger generation. And so what's happening is that we are moving from a society of the Enlightenment, which was no enlightenment at all. Interesting, they called it the Enlightenment when it was really a dive into darkness. And we have come full circle, and we're returning back to traditionalism, returning back to religion, we're turning away from the secular Enlightenment movement, which also created communism, by the way, the atheistic communism that murdered millions around the world. And we are returning to what this young man is talking about. And history goes in cycles. And now we're coming back to the cycle of revival. It goes like this. God raises up a man that brings a revival. How about D.L. Moody, Jonathan Edwards, the founder of the Presbyterian Church, brought revival in England, right? I can't think of, for some reason I can't think of his name right now, but anyway. John Wycliffe, right? With the translation of the Bible into English. That was a move, the printing press and the printing of the Bible and then coming into English was part of a movement, part of a revival. So it starts with a man. And then it becomes a movement, a man to a movement. And then the movement eventually begins to become a little more apostate. And it goes from apostasy to secularism, and then from secularism back to a man and a movement. And I want to submit to you that men like R.C. Sproul, men like John MacArthur, men like Paul Washer, and others have plowed the field of revival. And we're coming back into tradition when it comes to religion, when it comes to society. We're becoming more naturalistic and more traditional. Let's see some more. This man expresses his disgust over the attacks aimed at black men, not from white folks, but from other black men. Magic Johnson saying black men should vote for Harris as the only acceptable choice. Obama having the audacity to tell hardworking, mature black men voting for Trump is unacceptable. Quote, it's to the point where it's become redundant and just useless to talk about. It's amazing to me how dumb and just how gullible that they think that we are. And the sad part is that many are just like that. It's really frustrating. Now, if a white man came out and told a black man that it's unacceptable for him to vote a certain way, black folks would be all up in arms. But then we allow another black man to come out and tell another black man, a grown black man on top of that he can't do what he so desires. If there was a black man on the Republican side running for president, black folks still wouldn't vote for him. But I just want to make sure there was no foul language. So
then the audacity to tell me. So I want you guys to think about the last couple of weeks and the attacks that have been aimed at black men. Now watch this. Not from white folk, but from other black men. We got Magic Johnson, a black man, saying that black men should vote for Harris
Okay.
because that's the only
So,
acceptable choice.
you heard him in his own voice. I can't play the whole thing because of copyright issues with the background music. And that's the problem, folks. When you're putting background music into your X posts or your TikTok posts, it makes it really hard to put it on YouTube because YouTube will hit a copyright issue. So I have to limit that music really bad. So I read that into you instead to avoid the copyright issue. But you heard him in his own voice for just a few seconds there. And this is the Democrat not Democrat, but the demographic, I meant to say, that I'm talking about, where there's a change in the demographic. The black vote is not voting in unison any longer. Many of them are coming off the Tavistock Institute mind control plantation. And they're thinking independently. Former prosecutors endorsed Kamala Harris, claiming Trump packed the Supreme Court with extremely conservative judges. So there you go. There's the bias. Well, we can't have conservative judges, so therefore we have to have the globalist oligarch judges that are going to eliminate borders, and they're going to bring in non-citizens. And we can push our agenda of internationalism, eliminate nations. Oh, and by the way, eliminate the church and Christianity because it stands in our way as well. And then we can push our globalist oligarchy. It's not going to work, folks. I agree with this man. In America, we're supposed to be free. We're not property of the state. However, a white man did say to a black man's face, who has an audience of millions, that you ain't black unless you vote for him, and he got away with it. Do you remember this? Let me go back.
Problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump and you ain't black. Problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump and you ain't black. Problem figuring out whether you're for...
Of course, it just keeps repeating. All right. So, yeah, that's not working anymore. That gaslighting is not working any longer. Now, let's hear what this young lady has to say. Let me go up here. This young lady says, wait a minute. I thought our Republicans could never get the black vote. My family is struggling to afford the cost of living. We're tired of our money going overseas. We want Trump back. Just showing you, folks, that these folks are no longer being dictated to when it comes to how they vote or how they think. They're thinking independently, and that's good for the nation. So listen to what she has to say.
22% of black voters in swing states have now shown support for President Trump in 2024. But wait a minute, I thought the left said that this would be impossible, that Republicans could never get the black vote in the way that we're seeing now. See, what happened was an unfit president took office, and now my family and friends have to struggle to afford the cost of living. We are tired. We are tired of our money going towards wars across the seas and seeing our southern border being taken over. We want Trump back, and we want America back. 22%
want Trump back and want America back. Now, it's also happening with the Hispanic voters. So, let me go back. I went too far. All right. It's also happening with the Hispanic voters, folks. Hispanic voters are also leaving the idea that, oh, if you're Hispanic, you are required to vote this way. That's going to end. Now, here's a little conversation about the 2020 election. Listen to how J.D. Vance answers this question.
Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?
Let me ask you a question. Is it okay that big technology companies censored the Hunter Biden laptop story, which independent analysis have said cost Donald Trump millions of votes?
Senator Vance, I'm going to ask you again. Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?
Did big technology companies censor a story that independent studies have suggested would have cost Trump millions of votes?
Senator
that's the
Vance,
question.
I'm going to ask you again. Did Donald Trump lose the 2020
And I've answered
election?
your question with another question. You answer my question and I'll answer yours.
I have asked this question repeatedly. It is something that is very important for the American people to know. There is no proof, legal or otherwise, that Donald Trump did not lose the 2020 election.
You're repeating it.
Let me pause there for a second. That's the gaslighting, Tavistock Institute, mind control lie that's put out by the media. There's no proof. There's no proof. There's court cases, no proof. Don't be fooled by the lie, folks. Listen to how Vance answers that.
A slogan rather than engaging with what I'm saying, which is that when our own technology firms engage in industrial scale censorship, by the way, backed up by the federal government in a way that independent studies suggest affect the votes, I'm worried about Americans who feel like there were problems in 2020. I'm not worried about this slogan that people throw. Well, every court case went this way. I'm talking about something very discrete. A problem of censorship in this country that I do think affected things in 2020, and more importantly, that led to Kamala Harris's governance, which has screwed this country up in a big way.
Why is he saying censorship? Well, simple. What was censored? All of the proof that there was cheating in the 2020 election was censored. That's what he's referring to. The proof that she's asking for, right? And she already knows that, she can debunk it because, she can't, let me put it this way. She can't debunk it by legal proof, but she can debunk it by propaganda. See what I'm saying? She can use propaganda to try and debunk it by saying, oh, but that's not proof. I mean, nobody believes that. I mean, if that were true, why wasn't it all over the internet? And he is saying, because it was censored.
Senator, would you have certified the election in 2020? Yes or no?
I've said that I would have voted against certification because of the concern that I just raised. I think that when you have technology companies...
The answer is no.
When you have technology companies...
See the technique? I wouldn't have certified it because of the concern for the technology and the voting machine. He's talking about the voting machines, Dominion and all that. Oh, the answer's no. Oh, the answer's no. Oh, the answer's no. She thinks that is going to influence the American people in their vote. It won't. That type of Tavistock Institute technique of mind control, mind manipulation, no longer works, and they haven't figured it out yet. But they're going to figure it out, maybe, once they get their butts tanned in this election.
Americans at a mass scale in a way that, again, independent studies have suggested affect the vote. I think that it's right to protest against that, to criticize that, and that's a totally reasonable thing.
So the answer is no. And the last question, will you support the election results this time and commit to a peaceful...
I want to go back where she says the answer is no. Again, he gave his answer, but she's not going to allow him to have his answer. He is required to answer the way she determines he answered. Oh, so the answer is no. So the answer is no. So the answer is no. See what she's doing? Oh, no, look now, J.D. Vance, you're not allowed to have your answer. No. We're not accepting your answer. How dare you give an explanation to answer? No, look now. The answer is just no. You wouldn't have certified the election. So you would have been just as bad as Trump in your conspiracy theory election denying. You're an election denier, JD. You're an election denier. That's what she's trying to put out to the public. As if that's a negative thing. Guess what, lady? A growing number of Americans, a large growing number of Americans, are election deniers now because they believe there was cheating in the 2020 election. Oops. Mistake on her part. Here we go.
I think that it's right to protest against
Watch how
that,
she
to
does.
criticize that, and that's a totally reasonable thing.
So the answer is no. And the last question, will you support the election results this time and commit to a peaceful transfer of power?
Well, first of all, of course, we commit to a peaceful transfer of power. We are going to have a peaceful transfer of power. I, of course, believe that peaceful transfer of power is going to make Donald Trump the next president of the United States. But if there are problems, of course, in the same way that Democrats protested in 2004 and Donald Trump raised issues in 2020, we're going to make sure that this election counts, that every legal ballot is counted. We've filed almost 100 lawsuits at the RNC to try to ensure that every legal ballot has counted. I think you would maybe criticize that. We see that as an important effort to ensure election integrity, but certainly we're going to respect the results in 2024, and I feel very confident they're going to make Donald Trump the next president.
So, what did the globalist oligarchs, if you want to use the term Democrats or Rhino Republicans, you can do that. That's fine. They're all a part of the globalist oligarchy. What do the globalist oligarchs do when they lose an election that they were supposed to win, that was supposed to be rigged for them to win, i.e. Hillary Clinton? They burned down our cities, folks. Let's get Antifa out there and burn America's cities to the ground. Riot, be violent, harm people, and destroy things. Sounds like an insurrection to me. Election deniers. Yeah, you can see the hypocrisy. Now, here's another one. Barack Obama should be ashamed for berating, rebuking,